How does your film represent different social groups?
There are many different social groups represented in my film. Most of my characters are white British with one white German, one white half French, and one white half Malaysian. All of the characters are male and middle class. All my actors are 16, 17-year-old teenagers, yet some are playing older characters, except one actor who is a 45-year-old adult. Stereotypically in horror films, males are used as the antagonists to dominate the women who are used as the victims, as men are stereotypically stronger than women. An example of this is the horror film Scream, where a male antagonist murders female victims. But in my film, I have used men as the antagonists to dominate other men who are used as the victims. This is seen as a subversion to the horror genre. A film that gave me insight to this subversion is the action horror film Predator, where male protagonists are being hunted by a male antagonist. Although men in my film are also being stereotypically portrayed in the action genre, as men are used as the heroes and the villains in action films. This links to target audience, as teenagers will want to see male protagonists of around their own age because young victims make it more disturbing for the audience. This links to the personal identity and the uses of gratification theory, where people enjoy watching films they can relate to. Teenagers would also want to see tall, intimidating men as the antagonists, as it creates fear and tension. Also, the protagonists are young and male, so they will be seen as adventurers, which makes the film exciting for the audience. This links to entertainment or escapism in the uses of gratification theory, where people would enjoy watching films they can't relate to feel emotions they don't usually get to experience.
What kind of media institution might distribute your film, and why?
As I created a 3-minute film opening in GCSE English Media, my idea for my A-Level Media Studies 2-minute film opening was to create a sequel to my GCSE film opening. Despite the fact that my original film was produced by Universal Studios, my sequel will be presented as an independent film. This is because the main genre for my sequel is horror, and major Hollywood studios will unlikely produce a horror as they limit target audiences and have the tradition of creating more mainstream genres such as action or adventure. Also, the fact that my film will have a low budget, which means I won't be using A-class Hollywood actors, which would mean my film will more likely be produced by an independent company, as major Hollywood studios would use A-class actors to intrigue people into watching their films. Also, due to the low budget, my film will be shown at a few cinemas across the UK, but only for around 2 weeks, and then would be transferred to internet release. This is done so my film would be shown at cinemas where many people watch films, but then transferred to an internet release because it's cheaper, as my film is an independent film and won't have enough money to be shown in cinemas for months on. If my film becomes successful, it could possibly make opportunities for more sequels, but will probably not make opportunities for video games or Halloween costumes, as many people won't recognise the film. The independent horror film The Blair Witch Project had a budget of $60,000, then continued with 2 sequels, Book of Shadows Blair Witch 2, which had a budget of $15 million, and Blair Witch, which had a budget of $5 million. The independent horror film Paranormal Activity had a budget of $11,000, then continued with 5 sequels, Paranormal Activity 2, which had a budget of $3 million, Paranormal Activity 3, which had a budget of $5 million, Paranormal Activity 4, which also had a budget of $5 million, Paranormal Activity The Marked Ones, which again had a budget of $5 million, and Paranormal Activity The Ghost Dimension, which had a budget of $10 million.
Who would be the target audience for your film?
My target audience would be males and females, mainly males, aged 9 to 45 years, because my film is a hybrid of action, thriller and horror, where younger children would be interested in the action genre, older children and teenagers would be interested in the horror genre, and adults would be interested in the thriller genre. The 3 genres used together can create a wider target audience. I will give my film the 12A certificate, so any age may watch, but children under 12 will be warned of the violence and the horror, so it will be a parental decision whether they can watch the film or not. Films that are similar to mine include the horror film Friday the 13th, 2009, as the film is about young adults surviving in the woods from a masked psychopath. The film is certificated 18, so it would appeal to young adults aged 18 to 30 years due to the film's insight of strong bloody violence and the strong sex given by the BBFC.
How did you attract/address your audience?
In my film, the scene where the white masked chaser slits Reggie's throat would appeal to teenagers and young adults as sadistic violence is entertaining to them, but the scene would be scary to young children as intense violence would frighten them. Also, the scene where Jason is slashed off screen by the bloodstained masked chaser would appeal to teenagers and young adults as people in fear and agony excite an older audience, whilst younger children would be scared to watch someone in agony as it would be disturbing for them. The point of view shot in the beginning scene attracted my audience as it puts them in the position of one of the characters and made them imagine that they are in the film themselves, which makes the audience feel excited but also uneasy. The two shot of Dylan and the black mask chaser attracts the audience by putting them in the position of a witness and makes them want to watch more to know if Dylan will be avenged.
What have you learnt about technologies from the process of constructing this film?
I learned that the tripod can extend to a long length and is able to still stand at any angle, which helped with canted angles. A problem with the tripod was that when I was using the camera to zoom out, I wanted to turn the camera slightly to the right, but the tripod didn't allow it to turn smoothly, so the camera rotating wasn't smooth. When filming shots with tracking movement, I used the Steadicam to help keep the camera steady. This made smooth tracking in the shots and made the scene successful. When editing, I use Adobe After Effects for my title sequence, which makes successful wipes synchronized with characters, or wipes underneath a character's foot, or when a character falls over.
Looking back at your preliminary task, what do you feel you have learnt in the progression from it to the full production?
Since the preliminary task, I have learned a lot from the storyboarding. When I first created my storyboards, I was slightly over the maximum time limit for my film, and when filming the scenes, they ended up being a lot longer than I hoped. This meant I had to cut out a fair amount of scenes and almost completely scrap all of the handheld camera scenes. Many of the tracking shots were difficult to film as the actor's speed and the cameraman's speed had to be the same. My shot types did improve since the preliminary task, as I used different angles and movement in them, such as low and canted angles and tracking movement. I felt more confident with the equipment because the more I filmed, the more I was used to setting up and using the camera, tripod and the Steadicam. I think my end product was very successful as I made an opening and title sequence together that lasted just over 2 minutes. Music and sound effects are all copyright free from YouTube and Inborn Resources royalty free sounds.